Hello everyone, and welcome to a new episode of our podcast, Soul Speaks, dedicated to health and safety at work. Today we're talking about something each of you handles every single day, personal protective equipment, what we all call, in short, PPE, gloves, goggles, shoes, helmets, but also masks and lab coats. Things we perhaps put on automatically by now. But precisely because we use them every day, it's worth taking 10 minutes to really understand why they exist, when they're truly needed, and how to make sure they work as they should. Because a personal protective device used incorrectly or broken is the same as not having it at all. Ready? Let's go. Let's start with an important concept that sometimes surprises people. PPE is not the first protection to think about. It's the last. There is a scale called the hierarchy of controls. It works like this. First of all, you try to eliminate the hazard. If that's not possible, you try to substitute it with something less risky. Then come the technical and organizational solutions, meaning changing the machines or changing the way of working. And only at the end, when the risk cannot be fully removed, does it arrive, the personal protective equipment. Be careful though. Last line of defense does not mean less important, quite the opposite. In very many situations in our work, PPE is exactly the thing that stands between us and an injury. Think about work in home care. When a nurse enters a patient's home to deliver a service and may come into contact with organic material or biological agents, what protects them? Gloves for biological risk, a disposable mask, a disposable lab coat, and, where needed, a face shield. Without those devices, contact with the patient can become a direct health risk. Or think about colleagues who work with technical gases. Those who handle or fill cylinders are exposed to impacts and high-pressure gas jets. Those who transfer cryogenic liquids, those extremely cold liquids, risk cold burns if the cryogenic liquid reaches the skin or eyes. There, insulating gloves, goggles, and the face shield are not a detail. They are what prevents a serious burn. That's the point. PPE is the last barrier. But in very many cases, it is a barrier that must be there. Let's now look, in simple terms, at who uses what. We start with the home care sector and then give an overview of the other main profiles in the group. Those who work with cylinders, those who transfer cryogenic liquids, drivers and technicians. Let's start with home care operators. When there may be exposure to organic material or biological agents, the typical kit is gloves for biological risk, disposable mask. It sounds simple, and indeed it is. But it is precisely this combination that keeps you safe in everyday situations. Now let's move on to the other activities. Those who move or fill cylinders use goggles, preferably with side shields, for pressurized gas or for projections of small particles, a bump cap if there is a risk of hitting the head, gloves with mechanical protection, preferably in anti-slip material so the cylinder doesn't slip, and safety shoes with reinforced toe cap and metatarsal protection for the risk of a cylinder falling on the foot. Those who work with flammable or oxidizing gases add flame protection. Suitable gloves and flame-resistant garments with anti-static properties where there is a risk of explosion. Those who transfer cryogenic liquids, inert, oxidizing or flammable, need special protection. A face shield for cryogenic liquid splashes. Insulating gloves specifically chosen to prevent cryogenic liquid from penetrating, S2 shoes with cold insulation, and long sleeves and trousers, up to flame-resistant garments when the gas is flammable. And let's also talk about those who are always on the move, drivers. Because here there is an additional risk that is often underestimated, vehicle traffic. For this reason, for all drivers, one fixed item is the high-visibility garment. It serves to make yourself seen in the yard as well as at the customer's site, even where lighting is not ideal. Drivers of tankers carrying liquefied gases and cryogenic liquids at the moment of transfer at the customer's site are exposed to cold and high pressure. Their typical kit is helmet, face shield for cryogenic liquid splashes, insulating gloves for cryogenic liquids, S2 shoes with cold insulation, long sleeves and trousers, and of course, high visibility. Finally, hearing protection must also be added. Compressed gas drivers, those who deliver and handle cylinders, face the typical risks of cylinders, impacts, the danger of a cylinder falling on the foot. For them, goggles with side shields to protect against fragment projections, helmet or bump cap when there is a risk of hitting the head, gloves with mechanical and impact protection, S2 shoes with metatarsal protection, and high visibility. Finally, the technicians in the technical gas sector, those who install and carry out maintenance, often at the customer's premises. Here the kit depends heavily on the specific task, but the base is helmet where there are suspended loads or a risk of hitting the head, goggles with side shields, and a face shield for tasks that require it, gloves with mechanical protection suited to the task, and S3 shoes, the most complete ones, designed specifically for workshops and installations. And note, for specific activities, dedicated protection is required. For electrical work, gloves and clothing suitable for electrical risk and arc flash. For welding or cutting, flame protection. The risk assessment for the specific task always has the final say. As you can see, each activity has its own kit. And it's not a random choice, it always comes from a risk assessment carried out at the actual workplace. Now a part that concerns all of us closely, obligations. Because safety is a two-way pact. On one side, there are you, the workers. What must you do? Use the PPE you are given, following the instructions received, and do not modify or tamper with them. Check that the device is intact and in good condition before each use. Immediately report any defect or damage to your supervisor. And store the PPE correctly when not in use. 4 simple but fundamental things. On the other side is the company, Sol. What must it guarantee? Sol has the responsibility of putting safety rules into practice with precise local procedures. This means carrying out the risk assessment, choosing the right PPE for each activity, providing them to you and training you on how to use them. And here an important point. Before using a piece of PPE for the first time, you must receive training. You must be told what hazard that device protects you from, when and where to use it, how to put it on and take it off correctly, and how to take care of it. For some more complex devices, such as self-contained breathing apparatus, the training is even more in-depth, and if something changes in the work, a new product, a new activity, a new environment, the company must review which PPE is needed. The risk changes, and the protection must change with it. And we come to the last part, perhaps the most concrete of all. How do I know if my PPE is still in good condition? There is one golden rule: it is checked before every use, every time. Not once a week, not when we remember, every time. What to look for in practice? On gloves, look for cuts, holes, tears, worn spots. A biological glove with a hole no longer protects. A cryogenic glove with a broken seam lets the cold through. On goggles and face shields, scratched lenses, cracks, loose elastic. If you can't see well or they don't fit properly, they're not doing their job. On disposable masks and lab coats, they are called disposable for a reason. Use them once and throw them away. Do not reuse them. On footwear, worn or smooth soles, and remember that all soles must be non-slip. Dented toe caps, open seams. If you find something wrong, the rule is simple. Don't use it and report it. For cleaning, maintenance, and storage, always follow the manufacturer's instructions. Don't invent your own methods. A PPE stored incorrectly, for example left dirty, crushed, or exposed to sunlight, deteriorates sooner and protects less. And let's get one thing straight. Reporting a broken PPE is not a nuisance. It is exactly what allows us to work protected. A device must be replaced without a second thought. Good, let's summarize in 30 seconds. 1. PPE is the last line of defense, but in many cases it is the one that saves us. 2. Each activity has its own devices, chosen based on real risks. 3. Safety is a pact. You use and check the PPE, Sol chooses, provides and trains you. And 4. Check before every use, and if something is broken, report it and replace it. See you in the next episode when we will talk about a seasonal risk, heat. See you soon.